This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Kindness. We see it all around us. We see it when someone pays for someone else's coffee or holds the door open for another person. We see it in the smallest of gestures, like a smile or a kind word. But it's different when we turn on the news or social media. Oftentimes, what we hear about, what outlets are pushing, is the opposite of kind. Welcome to the Kindness Matters podcast. Our goal is to give you a place to relax, to revel in stories of people who have received or given kindness, a place to inspire and motivate each and every one of us to practice kindness every day. Hey, hello everybody, and welcome to the Kindness Matters podcast. I am your host, Mike Rathbun. Make sure to check out the Deluxe Edition Network's podcast of the month. There you'll find, for the month of April, the Drink O'Clock pod, the Quad Pro Quo podcast, and the Steve and Crypto show. And also, I want to remind you to check in the show notes for my partnerships with the Coffee Bros and Sunday Scaries. I have a special code that you can use to get some percentages off of your orders there. Now, let's get into the show. Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I have such an amazing guest on today. This gentleman is, he's been doing nonprofit stuff going all the way back to like 2005, and he has an entire foundation dedicated to nonprofit works, but two of them we're going to talk about today. And I won't spoil it, but please welcome to the show, Two Coyote Helianthus. Did I do it?
Yes, thank you. You got it perfect. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction.
This is going to be an audio-only podcast, so none of that will be seen. My little fist bumps. It's so awesome to have you on. I really admire all of the work that you're doing, Two Coyote. So you live Pacific Northwest up in the Seattle area, right?
I live about 90 miles north of Seattle.
Okay.
In the last big town in Washington on the way to Canada called Bellingham.
Bellingham. Really? The last big town on the way to Canada?
Yep.
I did not realize that.
Yeah, that's
I've heard of
on
Bellingham.
the Canadian
but
border.
How far?
We're about 30 minutes from the Canadian border.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, it's right in our backyard.
And you have... So what does it take for somebody to... did you start your foundation? And I should mention it. It's the Helianthus Foundation, right?
Yes.
Okay. When did you start that foundation?
I was operating under a different name, which was Two Coyote Gives, but I changed the name of it to Helianthus Foundation when I changed my last name to Helianthus legally.
Okay.
I've been doing the Two Coyote Gives / Helius Foundation for about 2 years, 2.5 years, I'd say.
Wow.
I just started taking all my efforts and putting them under one entity and representing them that way.
That makes sense. But I mean, because again, like I mentioned, you've been doing nonprofit type stuff, charity type stuff, going back to like 2005.
Yeah.
But what drives somebody like that? Is it just like an incredibly compassionate sense of being, or?
I've had people ask me the question. I think it's a lot of how I was raised. I was in Boy Scouts. We believed in doing a good turn daily and serving others, putting other people before ourselves sometimes even, and just helping the greater good. And I have found that it doesn't take much time at all or energy to just find something small that you're good at, do it really well, and find a way to incorporate that into your lifestyle. And by doing those things, you basically take a micro habit, you make it a habit, and you make this habit something that's good for the good of humanity. And then it's just part of your life, and everyone's benefiting from it as well as you.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, if you just give of yourself and give of yourself and give of yourself, and no, you don't have any you don't take anything back for yourself. It's exhausting, and you get burned out.
Right? For sure. But then when you see what good you're doing, that's how you give back to yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
like Operation Water Drop, which I'm sure you want to go into,
Yes, I do.
was started around the same time that I quit smoking, and I found that a pack of cigarettes could buy 120 bottles of water.
Wow.
So yeah, it's one cigarette is 12 bottles of water is how much cigarettes cost in Washington.
That's crazy.
Or one cigarette is, sorry, I got that wrong. 6 bottles of water,
Okay.
but it's still expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like I quit smoking and I took that change a little bit of money that I was saving, actually a lot of money that I was saving, and put that towards Operation Water Drop. And it keeps me accountable. If I start smoking again, I won't be able to drop water for people who need it and depend on it. So it keeps me
Exactly.
accountable. It helps me become stronger because I'm moving all the water. Upwards of over a ton of water I move by hand every week.
Sure.
Um, and so it's just a win-win-win for everybody.
Yeah, and since we're already talking about it, let's talk about Operation Water Drop. Now, the the theory behind, not the theory, that's not, what is behind Operation Water Drop is providing clean, drinkable water to those people who probably wouldn't have access to it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I say that the mission is just getting clean, drinkable water to those experiencing water poverty, whatever that looks like for them.
Yeah, because water poverty, and I assume that those that experience water poverty are primarily the unhoused. Is that correct?
And
Are
in
they the
this
most?
community, that's correct. Yeah,
Yeah, because I mean, in some places, in some municipalities, I know they like shut off the water in parks and stuff.
they sure do. Yep, I've been personally holding the city accountable to keeping water faucets turned on where they can.
Yeah, and that's just, I mean, it seems inhumane, and I realize that the unhoused population is a huge problem for many cities. I know I want to say there's a case from Big Bend, Oregon, going to the Supreme Court April 22nd, I want to say.
Okay.
And basically, a group of residents of Big Bend sued the city um, because the city would not let anybody camp. You can't camp inside the city limits in Big
Right.
Bend. And of course, that's mostly what the unhoused are doing. They're putting up tents and what have you. And then they
Yeah.
accumulate fines if they get caught. Well, fines for and you have some people in the unhoused population that are working, and but these fines are like crazy, like $500.
Right. Right.
Anyway, so
Yeah.
I know that the unhoused situation for cities is an issue,
It is.
but
It's a
at
it's a
what
major.
point do you know? Go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you
It's a
off.
major public health emergency. In many cities, the unhoused crisis, along with the fentanyl crisis, that also is really hitting communities hard right now. And um, I've been targeting the fentanyl crisis and the unhoused community through Operation Water Drop. The fentanyl crisis through I Carry Narcan, which we'll probably go into in a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, been been targeting both of those areas with my outreach, and just trying to make a difference. And I dropped off 2 cases of water to an organization this morning, and they thanked me and thanked me and thanked me because it made all the difference to an operation they were doing today. They were running a shower truck up in Blaine, and they didn't have any bottled water to hand out to people who were coming in to take showers.
Oh
So
wow.
they had 80 bottles of water delivered to them this morning. And then now they're able to pass out water to those folks who just wanted a drink of water, after a nice
Yeah.
clean shower. And I think
Yeah.
that's amazing. Why is that? I still struggle sometimes to understand why bottled water costs so much money at the store, especially for people who just are scraping by trying to get just clean water. That same bottle of water that cost me 10.85 cents costs over $1.25 plus tax at the store.
Oh, if you were just to go into a Safeway or
Yep,
a
correct.
convenience store and buy a bottle of water?
Yep.
Wow.
That's a
Yeah.
1,000% markup, at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, for sure. And really, water is life. We cannot live without water.
That is correct.
And
100%. And
it
it's
just,
and something I've learned this year because I started this in July in the middle of summer when it was hot and everyone associates the heat with water and the need for water. But what blew my mind is how I've continued to purchase and distribute 16 cases of water a week, nearly all winter long,
wow.
because the demand for water does not change as the
No,
seasons change. There is a higher demand in summer when it's hot because people have to keep cool. But in the winter, dehydration is just as much of a problem for the water impoverished as it is in the summer.
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and even let's just say even for somebody who's not necessarily unhoused but struggles with finding clean water, it's crazy. And I can't even imagine. And how did you land on that one? I look at charities and I'm like, oh, I could donate to some of them, but I'm like, which ones really speak to me? Was there something in particular that grabbed your attention about the water?
Yeah, I just I was like one day I was like went to Costco and I was like I wonder how cheap bottled water is because we got this heat wave coming up. I can just buy a couple cases of water, throw it in the back of my car, and hand it out downtown. And so that's what I did. I bought like 5 or 6 cases because it's, $4 and change for a case. And went downtown. I handed out several cases of water. And then I had some extra water left. So I reached out to an organization that I know hands out water in the camps and said, hey, do you guys want some water? And they're like, oh, we'll totally take it. So I gave them water. And then they were like, hey, are you going to be dropping off water again? And I was like, you know what? Yes,
I
that
am
is an
now.
idea. I am now. And that's when it all just came to me. And I said, I'm going to just do this. This is going to be my thing that I can do and I can do well. It's small, but, as someone told me today that the lady I was dropping off water to, she said, what you're doing with the water drop is like the bolts on a bridge. Nobody thinks about all the bolts and the nuts and bolts on the bridge, but all them, those all hold the bridge together. And she's like, there's a lot of foundation, there's a lot of steel, there's a lot of trusses and arches and all those things on the bridge that are already in place, but you're filling in all these little holes where the nuts and bolts go with the water drop. And so now I'm trying to find other small little holes that can be filled when someone comes to me and says, hey, I want to do something to help. The organization a lot of this water goes out through is called CAST, and CAST gives out meals 4 days a week downtown. And CAST has they hand out bananas, they hand out oranges, they hand out um, granola bars and toiletries and other things. And we have a potential need right now for a buyer of bananas. And if I can find someone that maybe makes a weekly trip to Costco and is willing to throw down a little bit of their money, get some bananas, then they would have all their bananas supplied just like they have all their water supplied.
Wow. And bananas are so good for you, the
Yeah.
potassium and
Yeah.
whatnot. Yeah.
And bananas are super important in our meal program because they're easy to chew. And a lot of the people that we serve meals to have major dental problems that make chewing difficult. So when we
Sure.
think of when people want to donate food directly to us, we ask them to donate things that are soft and easy to chew.
Sure.
A lot of folks never really think about that, but it is a major problem in the impoverished community is dental care, and amongst all healthcare and mental health care is lacking. but dental healthcare is a major one. So we're always trying to be conscious and aware and informed of people's dental needs.
Wow, yeah, all these little things that I know I never actually thought about the need for water until I found you. Thank you, Facebook.
Yeah.
Um, and now it's like that's all I can think of. We will be right back with more of my conversation with Two Coyote right after this brief message from another Deluxe Edition Network podcast.
Hey everyone, this is Matt, the Triple T podcast host. What does Triple T stand for? TikTok Tuesday, a show where viewers submit TikTok videos and we play and react to them. The co-hosts Toby, Euban, and Richie. You never know what's going to come out of our mouths. We're live every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Beard Laws YouTube. Let us rebuild your For You page with the best TikTok videos and be a part of the show by sending in your videos.
I was just talking to a person who's a executive director of a food bank up here, a food shelf. And the area that I live in, I'm in a northern suburb of Minneapolis, and nobody really thinks of it as being a poor suburb. For those of you who are going to be listening to this, that was air quotes. But she was talking about how her clients, the need for food has gone up like 400% since COVID.
Yes.
And it's just like,
inflation.
I think a lot of us just don't stop to think about the need that's out there all around us every day.
Right. There's a huge need. The food bank demand is through the roof. Cost of food at the grocery store has gone through the roof, as everybody knows.
Yeah.
The cost of eating out is twice as or three times as expensive as what it used to be 5-6 years ago. And wages have not kept up.
Exactly.
And so that's driven more and more people into positions of poverty.
Yeah, and especially for those people that all of a sudden they're finding themselves needing to use a food shelf. Each and every one of us, we're like one major medical bill away from being there.
Right.
And maybe on the extreme end, being unhoused.
Right. Housing is most people, they say, are within about 6 weeks to 3 months of losing housing at the current moment. Most folks are.
Yeah.
Most people don't have that huge emergency fund saved away that everyone recommends, and because they can't. The wages are not keeping up to the cost of living. So savings is a privilege, and a lot of folks don't have that privilege. And so like housing security is so close to my heart, and it's such a reality for, I think, everybody. If you really think about it, what happens if your income is lost, or there's a natural disaster, or whatever happens, a major health problem hits you, you can't work, and your bills go through the roof, and you're bankrupt from hospital bills, then what? And usually housing is one of the first things to go.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. So what you do is incredibly important, and I salute you. I think.
Thank you.
You're an angel. I don't want to get a religion. Anyway.
Yeah.
So you saw this need and you said, I can help. I'm going to help. And you talked about time, and I think about how much time I waste every single day when I could be doing something useful or to help another. And now I feel bad. Thanks a lot. No, I'm kidding. So you work with, are you Operation Water Drop, or that's one of the beneficiaries of the foundation?
That's me. That's one of my I call it a micro charity.
That's what I was going to ask you. What defines a micro charity?
For me, I think like doing charitable work that is not in the overall Operation Water Drop will run into the 4 digits as far as money goes, but really like things that are in the 3 digits and lower,
Okay.
I want to eventually, if I can find the way to get the funding for it, I want to do like $25 grants.
Okay.
So you got a kid that wants to paint the neighborhood library, the neighborhood miniature library, and wants some money, um, $25, help the neighborhood, or a $50 grant, or even a hotel stay for someone who's unhoused, that kind of a micro grant,
Okay.
$100 here. Not talking about the big $100,000, $1 million nonprofit type agencies. I'm talking about things that are very small and easy to manage just for me.
Sure.
And then,
Sure.
um,
And you
yeah.
have some help. You've had some donors and whatnot, have you
Oh
not?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got, don't get as much donations as I hope to be, but that's a trend amongst many of the nonprofits. I've gotten several donations for the, I Carry Narcan project that have covered all but about 100 of the, 1,000 buttons we've handed out so far.
Yeah, I
So
was
that
gonna.
one's been pretty popular.
Well, as long as we're there, let's go ahead and talk
Yeah.
about I carry
Yeah.
Narcan. Oh boy.
Narcan. Yeah. Naloxone is the, generic name, but yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
carry Narcan.
for those of us are from people listening who don't know, what does Narcan do?
Narcan, it stops an overdose in progress from opioid substances. So heroin, fentanyl, um, pain pills, anything that's an opioid or opiate, it can delay the overdose. The key is that it does delay the overdose. It does not reverse an overdose. So if
Oh,
an overdose is happening, it will stop the overdose in progress, and it will delay it and then when it wears off, the overdose will resume if they're not getting the appropriate medical attention.
okay. So it gives you time to get into the hospital and to get medical
Correct.
intervention.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So you decided to now. Are you giving out Narcan in addition to the buttons and the stickers?
No, I wish. Narcan's surprisingly in high demand. Not surprisingly, I should
That's
say.
weird.
It is in high demand. It is kind of hard to get. I get Narcan through 3 or 4 different sources I've found, and I put the sources for that on icarrynarcan.com. For those in the Washington area, some of the resources are Washington specific, but eventually I hope that I Carry Narcan could be a national website for people to get the basic information. What is Narcan? How do I use it? Where do I get it?
Right. Yeah. And but then now you're distributing buttons to
Correct.
people that says I carry Narcan. So
Yeah.
we're easily identifiable when we're carrying it around.
Self-identify. Yeah.
And
And it
how
also, brings
go ahead.
awareness because I've had people say, what is this? What is I Carry Narcan? Why are you wearing that button? What is Narcan? What's going on? And that, believe it, we hear about in the news the fentanyl epidemic and how many people are overdosing on a daily basis, and it's almost become noise, and it's
Yeah.
unfortunate. But there's hundreds and hundreds of people every day overdosing on these drugs, and it's happening everywhere. It's not just happening in downtowns. It's not happening in alleys and other stuff. It's happening in private
Abandoned
homes.
homes. Yeah.
It's happening at dance clubs. People get laced drugs with fentanyl and they go, they drop like a fly. And, next thing you know, they're overdosing on something that they didn't even know that was in the drugs they were using. So it's happening all over the place. There are reports now of marijuana that's been laced with it, that was bought outside of a state distribution system,
Oh
black
wow.
market, and was laced with it, and someone overdosing on it at a party at a farm in the rural country. There's it's just all the time, and it's everywhere. And I've personally witnessed it. I had a Narcan someone about 30 minutes after New Year's celebrations had occurred in Seattle, and it took 4 doses of Narcan to revive the guy, and he stood up and
Wow.
walked off. And the problem is he denied medical attention. And as I mentioned earlier, Narcan is essential if you have medical attention following. He walked off. And so unless he walked to somewhere else with more Narcan, or he didn't have a lot of drugs in his system, which he did because it took 4 doses, he could easily overdose, 2 hours later and be dead. And
So you don't know
it's
what happened
frightening.
to him?
We don't know what happened to him.
Wow,
He denied medical treatment when it arrived and walked off.
I wonder now. Now, Washington State legalized marijuana a while back, right?
Oh, yeah, it's been several years.
Yeah, okay. Minnesota just did last year, and we
Mhm.
have not set up a dispensary system.
Okay,
So, I mean, people are still getting it from, neighbors, what have you.
right. The old way.
The old way, the old fashioned way. Why, when I was a kid, we had to buy it from it. Yeah.
Yeah,
But in those places, those municipalities, those states where legal marijuana has not been, a bill hasn't been passed,
sure.
do you think it's a higher risk for something like that, for finding fentanyl in the weed that's being bought? Or do you think,
Well,
go
if
ahead.
if the story of the laced marijuana is 100% true, and the problem is overdose information, it's very hard to get real hard facts on it. As and there's a lot of reasoning. There's a lot of reasons to that. People deny treatment. People they find other things in their system, or they find the person maybe died of a heart attack, and so they don't say it's an overdose or something else, right? There's
Yeah,
just the numbers are skewed. But let's say all that is true and it is in marijuana or has been found in marijuana, then yeah, in places where marijuana is not grown and restricted and
regulated.
regulated, like it is in Washington State, you would be at a higher risk of potentially finding fentanyl in the substances that you use. And that's why I encourage people, and I have fentanyl testing strips to give out to people who do use, so that there's harm reduction at the very minimum, and that they could test the substances that they're using or addicted to, and make sure that they don't have fentanyl in them.
I've never understood why the people who are producing these drugs will cut it with fentanyl. I mean, given its history,
Yeah.
you're killing your customers, basically.
Yeah, and there's no shortage of new customers either, and that's a scary thing. And the
Yeah,
problem with fentanyl is that it's not regulated. So sometimes there's fentanyl that's really, really powerful, and then sometimes there's fentanyl that's been cut or whatever and is not very powerful. They lace something with what they think isn't a super strong cut, and they lace it with too much, and someone overdoses because it was the super pure stuff. So
yeah,
it's because the purity is all over the place. You have someone that maybe can do, they have their standard dose they smoke, and they could smoke that same dose and die because they got something that was super potent. And then there's other drugs on the market right now that are just as scary. Carfentanil, which is a
yeah.
horse-sized version of fentanyl,
Tranquilizer. Yeah.
and then there's a trank, which is a really nasty drug that's not responding to Narcan.
Oh, it does not.
And meth is also making a comeback.
Now,
So
does meth respond to Narcan?
no, it does not. Meth is
Okay,
not an
that's what I
opiate
thought.
or opioid. So there's nothing that can be done if someone's overdosing on that. But the overdoses are all coming in from fentanyl. Almost all of them are fentanyl related.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's just you're doing such an amazing thing here, and sometimes it's easy for us to take a look at a problem, the unhoused or water or overdose deaths, and go, it's just too big. I can't do anything.
Yeah.
As if we have to solve it ourselves.
Right.
But 10 of you in an area makes a huge difference. You
Right.
yourself make a huge difference,
Right.
and
Yep.
I
That's all you gotta
I
do.
so
Start
admire
small.
you. Yep,
My
absolutely.
therapist tells me start small to get big. And I really believe it. Just start something small and it'll grow and it'll be big
Well,
before you know it.
I hope you get huge, and I hope you go nationwide. I would
Thank you.
love to see Helianthus Foundation become a national thing.
Thank you.
I appreciate you taking the time, 2 Coyote, to share with me. You're doing amazing work, and I hope that this podcast inspires somebody and they go, I can do something like that. I can do.
Right.
And that's what this is all about, and just
Yeah,
inspiring
just
and
find
motivating
something
people.
small. Find something small that you can do and you do really well, and then just incorporate it into your life. Make it a micro habit. It'll turn into habit. It'll turn into your life. And that's that. It takes me about an hour a week to do the water drop, and you have about 154 hours a week to spend, and a third of that goes to sleep, and for a lot of us, a third of it goes to some kind of work or chores, but there's still a third of it left over, and that's a lot of hours, and it's less than 1% of my time right now is going to water drop, and yet it makes that big of a difference.
It does. It makes a huge difference. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on with me today, 2 Coyote. I love it. I love your program.
Thank you.
And folks, you can look for all of 2 Coyote's links. We'll have links to the Helianthus Foundation and Operation Water Drop and I Carry Narcan and all your social media links if they want to get in touch. And
Great.
Those will be in the show notes.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I so enjoyed talking to 2 Coyote Helianthus, and if you don't think that wasn't hard for me to say, think again. It was hard. But he might have a strange name, but the guy is making a positive difference in this world, and I hope maybe it'll be a motivation. Maybe it'll be an inspiration to some of us, you, my lovely listeners, to go out and find a need and fill it. Be that bolt that he was talking about in the bridge. There is no shortage of need in our world right now, and for anybody that wants to go out and start a micro charity, then maybe this is your push. Maybe this is the push you've been looking for. That will do it for this episode of the Kindness Matters podcast. Thank you so much for listening, taking 30 minutes out of your life to listen to me. And if you want to do an act of kindness, share this podcast with your friends. And let's get all of us thinking about doing something bigger than ourselves. And I will be back next week with another episode, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, be that person who roots for others, who tells a stranger that they look amazing, and encourages others to believe in themselves and their dreams. You've been listening to the Kindness Matters podcast. I am your host, Mike Rathbun. Have a fantastic week.